last year.
Hi, Judy.
Hello. Hello.
Ronnie, is it all right if I begin?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think we should go ahead and get started.
What high school did Rita say she's at?
Well, she's muted.
You're on
I'm
mute.
at Edgemont High School.
Edgemont.
Edgemont.
Okay, thank you.
Edgemont, yeah.
Madam President?
Good evening, and thank you to all our UNA members who are participating in this forum tonight. I am Marcia Brewster, recently elected president of UNA Westchester chapter. It's been a pleasure working with the immediate past president, Yana Edwards, over the last few years, and I look forward to passing the baton to the younger generation in the near future. Arun, take note. As the General Assembly begins its general debate at UN headquarters in New York, it's worth recalling that in June 1945, the US was one of 26 countries that brought the United Nations into being, with its main goal to prevent another war such as World War II. The United Nations Charter says all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or international or political independence of any state. Thus, President Vladimir Putin, in his invasion of Ukraine earlier this year, defied the charter and has ignored General Assembly calls on him to withdraw his forces. Because of the UN, world leaders normally come together each year to discuss peacefully the most pressing issues of our times. We value the role of the UN in providing a space for cooperation, even in the most challenging of situations. The majority of member states, led by the Secretary General, have voiced their opposition to the unprovoked attack on a sovereign nation. And we hope that diplomacy and negotiation can play a role in reducing the level of violence in the Ukraine. The conflict in Ukraine is the topic of our meeting tonight, and I very much look forward to the discussion. We encourage all members and friends of UNA Westchester to join our celebration of the UN's 77th anniversary on October 23rd at 3 p.m. via Zoom platform. This year's theme will emphasize peace, justice, and strong institutions at the global and local level. That's SDG 16, Sustainable Development Goal 16. And we also encourage all of you to make sure your membership is up to date so that you can receive the benefits of being a UNA USA member. I wanted to thank Ronnie Lichtman, our membership chair, and her intern, Richa Chowdhury, for organizing this event. We are also delighted to have our UNA members, Ambassador Francis Okello and Tony Kolarmalil, as speakers tonight. It is now my distinct pleasure to call on my friend and colleague, Yana Edwards, to introduce the speakers and the program. Yana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, as Marcia said, I am the immediate past president, and I was so glad to be able to pass it on to my mentor, which is Marcia Brewster. You know, I am so glad that she was willing to come back as president because she really brings something over 30-something years as being a part of the United Nations to what we do as a whole. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank all of you who registered tonight to be here. This was something that was thought up that we needed to do for those who are members, but really not active. So this is really something to try to get you active in what we do, because we need each and every one of you to help us in doing what we do, because it's more than what you think we need to do, but we have to do it locally as far as globally. So just try and be involved after this meeting. And if you have any concerns, like I told Arun, you know, don't be shy. You know, we try to do things correctly and try to do them in the right way, but we also need your help in advising us going forward, okay? So at this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tony Kalamali, who I realized after looking over his resume that he's a medical doctor, okay? So, and he's only been involved a little less than a year or about a year, and he's brought so much to what we do in the time that he's been here. And we thank him. He probably has an operation that he put off for tonight, But we thank him for being involved, with us, because after reading his resume, I realized he's very, very busy. So thank you. And I'd also like to thank Richa for being involved. Thank you so much, Ronnie, for bringing this. We talked about it for the last year and said it was necessary because you being the chairperson of membership, we thought about it after discussing it, that it was important for those who are registered as members to be involved, and you were able to pull it off. And again, thank you to Richa for helping us out. And we thank Marcia, for our president, for allowing us to do this tonight. So without further ado, Dr. Tony, I won't say doctor all the time, but introducing you, I would say, Dr. Tony, please, do what you do best. Thank you again.
Thank you. So first of all, let me thank the UNA USA Westchester chapter for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to present what little I know about the Ukrainian situation. So as some background, I spent about 9 years in Russia during. I just happened to be there right after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and also during the first election of now President Putin. And so I've also kept close ties with many of my friends back home, and I just happened to follow the situation that is there right now in Russia, as well as I have friends in Ukraine that I've also keep in touch with. And so I thought that I would give you a brief overview of the country of Ukraine, first of all, which was, I feel like, knowing the peoples and the history is as important as knowing current situation, right? How we got there is important. And so without further ado, I will get into explaining the country of Ukraine, if you will. So geographically, as you know, Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe after Russia. It lies on the northern shores of the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. This is important because the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea happen to be the way Russia gets their supplies over sea to the western part of Europe. Some of the important countries that you may have heard of in the news recently is, of course, the capital Kyiv, the cultural capital of Odessa, Kharkiv, Donetsk, Lviv are some of the important cities that are in Ukraine. The country of Ukraine has several countries on their border, so primarily Hungary, Moldova, Poland, Romania, and of course, its biggest border with Russia. As far as their natural resources go, Ukraine is rich in lithium, timber, and of course, its most valuable asset, which is natural gas. And according to the USAID, the Ukraine's agricultural sector is one of its biggest exports. Ukraine also happens to be the world's fifth largest producer of wheat and the fourth largest exporter of corn. This is significant because, say, for example, a country like Egypt gets 100% of its wheat, which is also a staple of its diet, from Ukraine. After the beginning of the war with Russia, there has been a huge increase, as you've all probably noticed, in the price of essential commodities, primarily due to the lack of supply of wheat from Ukraine. Another significant part of Ukraine is the natural gas pipeline. This is a very complex pipeline that Ukraine maintains, and natural gas flows from Russia to Western Europe primarily through Ukraine. And so there have been, and natural gas continues to flow to this day, even during the dispute, to Europe through Ukraine. And there are agreements in place between the two countries to make sure that there is no disruption in the flow of this gas. So as far as the people go, the people of the population of Ukraine is not just a singular people. They consist of Bulgarians, for example, Moldovans, Romanians, Hungarians, Romanian gypsies, and several other groups, including a group called the Crimean Tatars. This is a group that was primarily deported to the country of Uzbekistan during the USSR. The primary language in Ukraine is Ukrainian. It is a form of, it is written in a form of Cyrillic alphabet. It is very similar to the Russian language. The alphabet is slightly different, but say, for example, I am fluent in Russian. I can understand Ukrainian if I listen in carefully, but there are several differences between the languages, of course. Some other important languages that are spoken in Ukraine are Yiddish, Belarusian, and Polish, and in some cases also Moldovan. As far as the religion goes, primarily it is divided into two sections. There is the Western section is primarily a form of Catholicism called, Eastern Catholic faith. The Eastern portion is primarily a Eastern Orthodox, which is the same religion that is practiced in Russia. There's also a huge Jewish population in Ukraine that is also, as you all know, the current president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, also happens to be of Jewish descent. There's also the religion of Islam that is practiced primarily by the aforementioned Crimean Tatars, who have since the breakdown of the USSR have slowly been returning to their erstwhile to their home in the southern part of Ukraine. As far as the civics go, the president is elected by a direct popular vote for a 5-year term, and he is the head of state as well as the commander of the armed forces. And as I had mentioned before, Volodymyr Zelensky is a popular figure these days. He's everywhere, and he is the current president of Ukraine, elected to that 5-year term. So as far as the history goes, I'm not going to go too far back. I will start with more modern history, if you will, of when Ukraine used to be a part of the USSR. Now, as you all know, the Soviet Republic, the countries that constituted the Soviet Republic at the time were several, and the largest country after Russia within that republic was the country of Ukraine. Ukraine was an integral part of USSR, and during that period, of course, there were many unfortunate events that happened, including, for example, the then Stalin had instituted what was an artificial, if you will, famine that killed millions of Ukrainians. There was also the killing of what was called the intelligentsia, deliberate killing, of course, and that a lot of people lost their lives during that association that they had with USSR. And some of you, including me, were around when Mikhail Gorbachev, the first and the last president of the USSR, instituted what was called perestroika, which translates roughly to rebuilding. That was he was trying to liberalize the public life in the USSR and convert it into more of a capitalistic society. He failed in this endeavor, and with a coup that happened in 1990, he was ousted from office, and these republics that were part of the Soviet Union were then disbanded, and one of those republics, of course, was Ukraine. Ukraine outright proclaimed independence on August 24th in 1991, and this was approved by a referendum. 92% of the Ukrainian population approved this in a referendum on December 1st of 1991. As with all all other countries that were part of this republic, Ukraine did not have a great transition, right? It was really difficult. There were long lines. People were starving. There was a lot of confusion just because of all the systems that were in place for several years during the USSR were all disbanded at once, overnight almost. There was confusion on who was leading what, and it took a while, but after a couple of years, Ukraine became independent and became its own country. Another point to note is also that the Ukraine happened to have the third largest reserve of nuclear weapons at the time. Not deliberately, but as part of the USSR, a lot of those weapons happened to be on the territory of Ukraine. And so there was a so-called Budapest Memorandum that was signed in 1994 that ensured that Ukraine would give up their nuclear weapons in exchange for territorial integrity. And there was a guarantee, if you will, from Russia at the time that they would not invade Ukraine if they gave up their nuclear weapons. Today, as part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, Ukraine is a non-nuclear state. They do not have any nuclear weapons. These weapons were slowly disbanded and over several years, and this was completed in 2001. So, a couple of quick, happenings in the modern Ukrainian history. In very recent history was two of important revolutions. One was the Orange Revolution. This happened to happen. This was part of the 2004 uprising that happened after the Ukrainian election, which was supposedly, and it was afterwards proven by international observers that it was rigged in the favor of Viktor Yanukovych, who was supported by Russia. Viktor Yanukovych actually came back in another election in 2014, where he was again ousted during another election, during another revolution, and he is at the moment in exile in Russia. And we come finally to the current state of what the situation is in Ukraine and how it has started. So in late February, early March of 2014, Russia annexed Crimea, which is a southern port in Ukraine. This is a famous destination and continues to be a famous destination for Russians to vacation. There's very beautiful beaches, and it is an extremely beautiful area. Russia used de-identified army, what they call the Little Green Men was the name that was given to these people who to this army that took over the state, the city of Crimea, annexed Crimea, the territory of Crimea. And later there was a proxy war that was launched in the area to the eastern part of Ukraine that's called the Donbass. So the Russian government tied up with what was called the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic, which are two groups in the area that were primarily of Russian speakers. And they launched an offensive against Ukraine, and they pushed back the Ukrainian troops to the city of Debostov, and that is where there have been ongoing shelling since 2015. And this situation was in flux till February 24th of 2022. where the US had warned that there was troop migrations happening along the border. And at the time, Putin decided to invade Ukraine. To this day, Putin does not call this a war, nor does he call it an invasion. It is still called a special military operation. And you will see that word being used by all Russians, including the top brass of the military. They still do not say this is a war. As you may have heard in recent events, Russia has been pushed back somewhat, but it has come at a big toll, right? So the estimated losses, according to Reuters, at least, nearly 30,000 people dead. 52,000 people have non-fatal injuries. Approximately 14 million people have been displaced from their homes. 140,000 buildings have been destroyed, and approximately $350 billion in property damage. These are the estimated losses in the area of Ukraine. There's also the larger loss that has happened with the lack of, for example, agricultural exports and so forth that have also happened. That is my time, so I will pass it back to Johanna.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Glomari. It's really a good overview of what's happening in Ukraine. I knew nothing about, or most of us knew nothing about Ukraine until this war happened. And it's so unfortunate that we have to find out about Ukraine being the second largest, country in that area, that it's really amazing. So we thank you for your knowledge and your overview of what's happening there. And let's just keep them in prayer if you do pray, or just keep them in moments of silence, because they've really been devastated. I don't know if they don't call that a war. And I was in a war. I was in a war in Vietnam. If they don't call that a war, I don't know what you call a war, But anyway, thank you again, and thank you so much for your time. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Ambassador Francis Okello, who is a former ambassador at the United Nations and is also a special envoy to the Secretary General of the United Nations for many years. He's from Uganda, which I've been to, that beautiful country, and we just appreciate him. He's also been on the board for a short period of time and has brought so much to what we do, here at the United Nations Association of Westchester. So without further ado, Ambassador, thank you so much for being here tonight. We call on you a lot. See, it's not just to be good, we call on you a lot, but we appreciate you just as much. So go ahead and let us know what's happening as far as, because you're concerned about the welfare of the people. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Johanna. And I'd like also to thank and pay tribute to Ronnie and all the organizers of this event. It's a wonderful event, and I look forward to participating in it. So let me begin by saying that for us supporters of the United Nations within UNA, the war in Ukraine, or perhaps more accurately, the unprovoked Russian aggression against Ukraine, is particularly tragic and painful. And outrightly, it is a scandal on the international community. To begin with, this is a major conflict between two member nations or member states of the United Nations, which is an organization committed by its charter to the creation and maintenance of international peace and security, and to the peaceful resolution of all disputes, all differences, through negotiations, mediation, or diplomacy. Now, both Ukraine and Russia are founder members of the United Nations and original signatories of the Charter. Russia, as a successor to the defunct Soviet Union, is a permanent member of the Security Council, whose primary responsibility is the maintenance of international peace and security, and the enforcing of this mandate by peacekeeping operations if necessary. Both countries have been active in the major activities of the organs of the United Nations, General Assembly, economic, social affairs, human rights, etc. Both Russia and Ukraine, once a single country, as John has just informed us, are developed, economically and socially developed countries of Europe, a region that started and severely suffered from two major world wars within 25 years in the last century. So this is why I say that this war is a great tragedy and a scandal. Now we know that following the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, tensions started simmering between Russia and Ukraine. Russia fomenting hostile activities in the eastern part of Ukraine, bordering it, and inhabited mainly by Russian-speaking Ukrainians. Later, Russia annexed Crimea, a part of Ukraine, and escalated hostilities in that eastern part, Donbass. And of course, Ukraine reacted in obvious self-defense and supported by the majority of the international community. And thus the war began, which is now in its 7th month. I don't see anyone. Oh boy.
You lost us? We see you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I lost you. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I
we
didn't know
see
whether
you.
I was on.
We,
or
we
not.
see you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I said that this war in Ukraine, which is started in February, is now in its 7th month, and there's no end in sight. So I want to point out briefly and comment on two main aspects of this Russian-Ukrainian conflict. The first is the humanitarian and physical destruction and humanitarian consequences of this war on Ukraine. And secondly, to say a few words on the great danger that this conflict poses to the world as a whole. Now, first on the destructive and humanitarian aspect of the war. Now, war, any war at all, is essentially horrific and destructive. Even if it is waged in self-defense, there is absolutely nothing good in it, whether for the victor or the vanquished. In Ukraine, it is estimated that over 140,000 residential buildings have been destroyed or severely damaged. Over 115,000 and counting private homes destroyed or damaged. It is estimated that countless, literally countless human beings like you and me, countless Ukrainian civilians have been killed or are losing their lives in indiscriminate attacks on their homes, and cities and towns, which are being leveled. And the countryside is literally littered with disfigured, constant airstrikes, wreckages of destroyed tanks and trucks and planes and bridges, etc. Quite reminiscent of my days in Afghanistan, when I arrived there and the Soviets had just moved. The countryside was just littered with instruments of war that had to be removed, including mines. The UN Refugee Agency estimates that over 1.2 million Ukrainians had fled their country. 1.2 million and more have taken refuge in neighboring countries like Poland and Moldova, Romania, Slovakia, and other countries in Europe and beyond. Many more Ukrainians are displaced and separated from their relatives and friends. And others are simply lost, aimlessly moving around as casualties of war. Now, the emotional toll and trauma on many of these Ukrainians is simply indescribable and will take years. It will take years to recover, if at all. Now, the UN and many organizations and individuals around the world are doing whatever they can to help. And in many cases, delivery of help and assistance is being severely affected by insecurity, military operations on the ground and in the air, making it difficult for this aid to arrive where they're intended. So until this dreadful war ends, it is not possible even to begin to think of the economic and social reconstruction of this country, which will run into several billions of dollars. Absolutely tragic. And this is just an overview of the destruction in the country, but you can get more details from this at the UN website. There's a whole section on Ukraine, which gives you more details and heartbreaking details about the situation over there. So that is a humanitarian situation. Now on the impact of this war on the rest of the world as a whole. Right now, as we speak, it is some 27 conflicts are going on in the world today, 27 major conflicts. And we are not even mentioning the smaller ones that are either internal or localized and simply not being reported, but nonetheless deadly. But for some reason, the conflict in Ukraine has uniquely caught the attention of the world and galvanized it in a way that has never been seen elsewhere in recent past. So in many ways, this Russian-Ukrainian war has the bearing and the hallmarks of a global conflict. And that's the serious part. It bears the hallmarks of a global conflict and may very well become one, as some pundits are already saying. It is beginning to eerily resemble the tense global atmosphere of the Cold War. Mm-hmm. This war is no longer a war between Russia and Ukraine. It is Russia, on the one hand, supported tacitly by China and its allies, on the one hand, and Ukraine mightily supported but militarily by the US and the members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organizations, NATO. Both sides are digging in as the specter of a possible defeat is becoming a driving force to continue and escalate the war. Even neutral countries like India and others, I'm sure must be doing a lot of hard thinking of the impact of this war on them and what the near future might hold. The war is having its effect on the world economy in terms of rising fuel prices, gas prices, on trade, disruption in trade, and it's affecting many citizens of the world, whether they are for the war or not. So these two aspects of the war in Ukraine, humanitarian and the Cold War nature of the war, are to me very worrying. But perhaps more worrying of all is that the war seems to escalate in intensity and sophistication. And there's no telling when and how this conflict is going to end. The Secretary General of the United Nations yesterday talked to Putin. And obviously this discussed the war. And he came out with the remark that he doesn't see any end to this war. Secretary General yesterday. So somber as this may be, I think that this is no reason to give up or throw in the towel. I think that the UN and all of us who support the UN must continue to do whatever we can, in whatever manner we can, until the Russian aggression is stopped, until the territorial integrity of Ukraine is restored and peace returns to that country at last. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Great job. Again, just learning so much from tonight's meeting from Dr. Kalamali and yourself. And as you see, those who are on this call tonight, as you see, we are very much concerned and we learned so much. I am now the chair of the advocacy committee, and it's things that we need to advocate for, but we need your help in coming and being a part of our group. And because just not sure what to do. You know, you feel helpless when so many people are suffering as they are. And it just doesn't make any sense. You think in 2022 that things would have changed by now, but they haven't changed much as far as people in people's minds. But anyway, please be involved and help us to do what's necessary to be done. At this time, I know Dr. Calamari was supposed to have a visitor, but he was unable to get a person who was actually here as a refugee, but I think it was too young to come on to tonight's program. Any comments on that, Doc?
No, it's just that, so I did not meet the student in person, but I was made aware that it was just joined recently in my daughter's school, for example, and was not very conversational in English, so it would have been difficult for him to,
Sure.
I also didn't want to, I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking that he may even have a form of PTSD, maybe as a young child, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Discussing something like this, and so I decided, against it. It's better not to. But the teacher agreed as well. So
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Dr. Calamari, which I didn't mention at first, is at Columbia University. And I didn't mention, but he had mentioned to us earlier during the week that he may not be able to get this guest. Like I said, if this young person is not suffering from PTSD, I don't know why. I still suffer after 50-something years, PTSD. So I can imagine what young people are going through at this time, in their lives. Hopefully, God willing, they'll be able to, get past this. And because war is no joke, and it stays with you for a long time. At this time on our program, we're breaking into rooms, okay? We didn't have as many people on tonight as we wanted to have, so there'll probably only be about 3 breakout rooms that we'll go into, and each 2 breakout rooms, actually, I was just told. So we asked people or someone to volunteer to be a recorder, to give the recording at the end of the session. We'll probably have a little bit more time tonight to talk about it. Let's come up with some solutions, okay? Or some ideas that we can send forward as a organization and as a association of United Nations to those who are at the top. Maybe we can get one to Putin, to let him know what is necessary. Stop this craziness. It's not helping anything. It only enhances his ability to be the strong man in that area, which doesn't help the future. As we have some young people that are on tonight, and we don't want their futures to be, the way he thinks about it. And because he's not thinking about the people in his area that need to understand that this is not what we want for our future. So we're going to break out into those 2 breakout rooms, and please someone volunteer to be the recorder to give the report back from each breakout session. Okay. All right, Dr. Lichman. Her mic Okay, I'm in my own breakout room. I'm by myself. No. Is anyone here with me? Okay, looks like I'm in my own breakout room and I can't conduct this by myself. So I'm not sure what to do. But connecting, Lauren is connecting to the audio. Inspiring Strategy Institute. Not sure what's happening here. Is someone in this breakout room with me? Hello? Lauren? See something that says Inspiring Strategy Institute? Who is that, Lauren? Lauren, you're on mute. Lauren, you're on mute.
Hello?
Hi, Ronnie. I'm in a breakout room by myself. There was a Lauren that was on, but no one, and she was on mute, but no one came on.
I can't hear a word you're saying. Are you break? I can't hear, you break?
Can you hear me now? Okay, I got off the voice. I'm not sure what's happening, but no one is in a breakout room with me. Yeah, I'm not sure because I switched off. Tony's in his room and I exited from his room. Okay. No, nothing. Okay. No. Let me see. Let me see. I'm gonna go to view. Let me see. Gallery. Okay. Yeah, they're doing. Okay. And I know I'm recording, so this recording is going to be crazy. Okay. We didn't practice that, did we? Yeah, I was in a room with everyone at first, and then I left, once, and yeah, then I exited. Right, interrupt their room. Okay, all I see is happening is once we come back together, we'll have to have discussion, further discussion, and then try to unify our thought at that. I'm in the main room, yeah. No, not your fault. It's, I just. Right, exactly. Hopefully they're in a room by themselves, are they? Okay, good. Yeah, right. Okay, but that's a good thing. So someone will record and let us know what they discussed and bring it to us as a whole. Very good. Okay, okay, but great job. It's going well so far. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, we'll push it out. We'll push it out the next one. Very good, very good, very good. Okay, see you in a few. Okay, bye.
right in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah.
Let me tell Yana, we're back. Yeah, the breakout room knows no kindness. So Yana, you're back.
You become an expert, Ronnie, on this breakdown. Breakdown or breakout or whatever break.
Breakdown, maybe.
I just
Yeah,
got,
somehow I'm not an expert. Yana didn't get in a room and we couldn't figure out. I tried to move him, and I don't know if you noticed, Tony, I popped into your room for a second. I thought I was putting Yana in your room, and I realized I put my.
Whatever you're breaking, you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
there was only one room available. That was 2, and I was already with Tony. But anyway, let's move on. Okay. How did it go, gang? How did it go?
Very well.
Interesting discussion.
We're just warming up.
I know, that's what happens. That's what happens when you're having fun, you know? So who's going to be in room 1? Who's going to be the moderator or the facilitator going forward?
What was room 1?
That was Tony's room, room 1.
Well, actually,
okay,
Tony's room.
Tony, yeah,
He was
okay.
actually.
Okay.
I have it
Okay.
backwards. Oh, well, sorry.
No, I think there was only one room. I think.
Oh, there were 2 rooms.
Yeah. Okay.
2 rooms. There was
okay,
Tony's
Tony.
room and Ambassador Kalo's room.
Okay, Ambassador. Okay, you want to go with yours first? Go ahead.
Who, me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, right. All right. I think a number of issues came up and we just ran out of time. I could isolate 4. One is that we wanted to know to what extent there's an internal agitation in Russia, particularly among the general population and the military and the oligarchies. That was a major concern. It is thought that if these wealthy people who are close to Putin could begin to speak out, that could help the situation considerably. So just to put in mind that was one area of concern. The second one that I sensed was that—
Before you go on, Ambassador, Tony, are you able to speak on that?
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
Are you able to speak on that first?
The question.
Sorry?
On the first point, is there sufficient, should I say, rebellion among the oligarchy and the military and the general population against Putin for what's happening in?
Yeah, so I have it definitely. From the general population, that will not happen, just because the population generally in Russia tends to be, I would say the word timid. They're just like us. They go to work every day. They pay their mortgage. they don't go out and do protests. It's not very common. They're very obedient, if you will, population, right? So they. And that's come from years of communism. If you were, in even the middle-aged population there and have were children at the time of communist rule. So they have the understanding that if they go out and protest, something bad will happen and they'll end up somewhere bad. So most people will not go out and protest. Now, the oligarchs are all dependent on Putin because that's the way it's been structured. So it's, like you said, will all of them band together and get him out of office? I don't know, but I highly doubt it. And I think that he's here to stay, at least for the reason. But there's been all sorts of rumors flying around in recent days. But it remains to be seen what's going to happen.
Thank you, Tony. Sorry, Ambassador.
Okay. No, that's great. Yeah, very good. So that was the first point. The second one, there was a general concern in the meeting about the destruction, physical human destruction in Ukraine. You've all seen it on TV and newspapers and so on. I mean, the ghost towns that are created and wreckage, war, etc. Is just heartbreaking. And the humanitarian effects of this on people fleeing, refugees, women, children, etc. And I think our group felt that whatever can be done to alleviate the situation should be done. Considerable effort is being done by the UN, but we should continue to do that.
Okay.
So
All
that
right,
was
thank you.
a general, it was more a concern than
Many things. And raise your hand, who was in that group with the ambassador?
I was there.
Okay. Okay. All right, Tony, a report from you. Are you the one?
no, yeah, I have one
We
or
have
two
some more points.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, and then the third one is what can the UN do to help? I mean, apart from the humanitarian
Hmm.
and other aspects which it is really doing. I said on the political side, we recognize that very little can be done. As I put it, the UN, at least on the Security Council level, is driving its cars with the brakes on. I mean, it just it's not moving, because whatever positive action is taken in the Security Council is vetoed or sabotaged by Russia. So very little can be done politically level in terms of enforcing peacekeeping operations in that part of the world. The other area was we just wondered towards the end of our meeting. We just wondered why there's so much. Perhaps not why. We just wondered that the situation in Ukraine sort of generated a lot of international support and interest as compared to other crises in the world. That are already several crises in the world, particularly in Syria and other places which are just as serious, but they've not generated the kind of attention and support that the Ukrainian situation has done. So it is felt that maybe this is a subject for another topic, which Yana will be leading.
Could I add one point from our group?
Please.
Yes.
So we were also asking what the US can do, and also what other parts of the international community can do other than the UN.
Yes.
And so Ambassador Okello mentioned that because I was asking, can't the UN give all these billions of dollars that they're giving in weapons? Couldn't some of it
that's
be
right. Yeah.
humanitarian or
Yeah.
diplomatic? And he said, they're giving what is being asked. So the Ukrainians are asking for the weapons. They feel they've got to win the war before they can do the rest of it. But I think the same is true of the EU and maybe NATO. But I guess they are trying to do what they can in terms of humanitarian aid, right? But it's they're being asked to give the war weapons.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help us,
Right.
Yeah.
This is what comes to mind. We as an association, we are just one, but there are over 200 others around the country. If we unify our thought and is someone we can send our thoughts to?
We can.
Yeah.
We can. And
Okay.
we can certainly be a force for, anti-war.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, I agree.
Anti-war. And
Yes.
I just think one other point we were talking about was nuclear disarmament. And Joan brought up the point, if Ukraine had not agreed to give up the nuclear weapons, then Russia probably would have used it as an excuse to invade. But Joan was saying maybe other countries will see that as an argument for keeping nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh my goodness,
Interesting.
Oh, yeah,
That's a scary thought.
it is.
Yeah.
And I just think we as a country, the United States, should take in more people.
Oh, that was another thing.
And that was
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, refugee, yes.
Spread the burden of refugees.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can I ask what you think about this idea? The question was why Syria didn't get the same kind of recognition when it was attacked and when it was splitting apart and when there was conflict. I think President Zelensky had a democracy. I think Assad never had a democracy. So the democratic nations may sway toward other democracies to protect them. I don't know. Whatever you think, I'd like to hear about it.
Yep.
No, I agree. I was thinking the same thing. What you had, Ukraine was a recognized national entity, with clear borders and a clear government and population. In Syria, you had a major part of the population trying to revolt against the government. And so it was some, to a degree, an internal civil war kind of thing, as opposed to one nation clearly invading another nation. So I think that's probably one of the things that made it much more difficult to intervene.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, we're going to move on to Dr. Calamari's report, and then we can all gather back and come up with the other, ideas that you may have. Doctor?
Yes, thank you. So it was a group of Dr. Lobach, Reach, and myself in the breakout room. And a couple of things that we discussed. One was different ways that we can help in the situation. And primarily the main concern was, what is the future of this conflict, right? How will it end? I gave my opinion. If we take it for what it's worth, that I believe the country will be split in two, and that's, there'll be the western part of Ukraine will remain as a Ukraine, and the eastern part will cede to Russia, which technically it already has done that. And there will be a redrawn borders, unfortunately, and that's probably how peace will be brokered, mostly probably by China. And we know that Putin is about to meet with Xi as well, I believe next week. So we'll see what comes of that. And so the other, how we can help. I know that Dr. Lobach has said that she was contributing to some initiatives that the UN had, and also I mentioned that there were some local initiatives that were happening as far as humanitarian aid that goes to Ukraine, and that we can also get involved in. I don't know if you want to volunteer your time there with those organizations. And we also mentioned that we were hoping that the UN can help, just like the other group mentioned. If we were hoping at least that the UN can get involved and more in this, rather than just passive resolutions, maybe just get somehow involved, send a peacekeeping force once peace has been brokered, something, just like they have done in several of the countries in Africa, right? We have neutral troops, UN troops who will go over and keep the peace there, if you will. So maybe that's something that can happen down the line.
It's an idea.
Yeah.
Marsha, you want to say something?
I just wanted to say something on that last point that Tony made to the ambassador. I mean, you'd have to have a ceasefire and both countries to agree, wouldn't you? For the peacekeeping operation?
That's right. And the Security Council has to authorize a peacekeeping force, and that Russia comes in. Russia comes in. They can accept it or veto it.
Quick point about that. There is no war, according to Russia.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, this is still a military operation. So if you went to the Security Council, there is no war. There is no conflict. There is a military operation for Russia to free some portions of Ukraine from Nazis. So that is what they're saying.
Very true.
Good point.
Very true.
Good point.
But it would be good if they could have some sort of peacekeeping or, bringing people to the table, negotiations and so on. I mean, just the thing they did in Turkey with the wheat exports, that was brokered by Turkey, right?
Yes.
The agreement on the wheat exports.
And the UN, yes.
And so that kind of thing, if we could just get more of that going, just even on very specific items that Russia and Ukraine could agree on.
To what extent, Tony, do you think the idea of the split of Ukraine would be acceptable to the Ukrainians? Will they go for it?
That was the exact question that Dr. Lobach asked as well. So
yeah,
I mean, accept it or not, it is reality, right? At this moment, it is reality. And that, you know, it is, there are these separatist organizations that are the two separatist organizations that are call themselves freedom fighters, have sided with Russia, and they seem to, you know, they're not going to agree to go back to Ukraine. I don't think so. I mean, then it's hard to push them back as well across the, you know, artificial border that they have put in place. So
do they want to be part of Russia, or do they want to be independent?
no, they want to be part of Russia. Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay.
Just like Crimea, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Because they are primarily Russians, ethnically Russians.
Russian, okay.
Yeah.
And that's the eastern part of Ukraine you were speaking
Yeah,
of?
Yes, that is the part that was primarily during the USSR. They had resettlement. You know, there was a lot of moving around, right? When Stalin was in power, he would move people all around the country. And so the same way he moved a lot of Ukrainians out of Ukraine into Russia, and a lot of Russians out of Russia into Ukraine.
So
So
does that, does that seem to be the majority opinion in that part of the Ukraine, or is it just a minority?
it would seem that it is a majority at least. Yeah.
So that would be a possibility out of ending the war, would be to divide. And the people would probably agree to that.
But dividing the country, Ronnie, would mean that Ukraine, which wants to be a part of NATO, will join NATO and the European Union.
The
And
West.
that's exactly what Russia doesn't like.
Yeah.
So how, unless they reconcile to that? Because that would be bringing Western forces right at their doorsteps.
So it is possible that Russia would put a condition on that split, and the condition is that neither Western nor Eastern Ukraine join NATO. And probably the Western part may not agree to that.
Yeah.
Am I correctly summarizing that?
I believe their application is already in.
Oh, that's the
Yeah,
European.
yeah,
No,
that's,
no.
yes.
I think
Right,
it's
but they haven't been.
European Union, not NATO. I don't think they've ever applied for NATO.
No,
European
European
Union.
Union.
EU.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they want to be part of NATO as well.
No, I think,
Didn't Turkey apply to become a member of the EU and was rejected, I think?
I don't think so.
Oh.
At least I'm not aware of it.
But Turkey is a member of NATO still.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yes, not EU. They wanted EU.
No,
and
no,
they
not a
didn't.
member EU, because Greece is blocking it.
And there are other countries similar you know, situation. No, well, not similar as Ukraine, but you know, the Estonia and Latvia are two countries who also have a sizable, you know, Russian-speaking population that you know they're considered European countries, of course, but again, same situation there. Huge Russian population that is not very happy with the local government and are okay with joining Russia as well.
Right. But I think they're members of NATO now, I
they
think.
belong to
Yeah,
NATO.
they are. The countries
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
belong to NATO. Yeah.
Okay, we're quickly running out of time. I want to ask Richa and Arun, any comments from you young people? You know, because it's your future that we're trying to protect. Any thoughts that come to mind, how to either, you know, let them know how we think, or I'm not even sure. You know, any comments from you young guys?
Well, I'm not quite sure about that yet, but listening to what everybody else has to say, I learned quite a bit, and I'll definitely research more and learn more about it so that I can do something to help.
Good. I think just like we do with climate change, I think young people need to get people together as far as just getting their thoughts, because it has to be a way that we can infiltrate our thoughts into what these people are thinking, because they're definitely crazy. You know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I know it's not making any sense to you. How about you, Arun?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Richa said, but I also think it like with anything, you should start obviously with baby steps, but I think having an angle like telling them that, you know, we are all siding with Ukraine, we are all siding with obviously the right side of this war, of this tragic event in our history. So like various fundraisers and campaigns and initiatives have actually been going on in my town, and I've also been contributing to those. And I think starting with those small steps can encourage others to follow and join the lead, and ultimately we can help aid
Very
this,
good. Very good. Thank you for your input. Thank you.
On our side, Yana, Judy and myself are members of the Rotary Club, and recently we and other clubs within Westchester got together and raised something like $60,000 to purchase 2 ambulances that we're able to send to Ukraine to help all the wounded, etc.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Excellent.
That's wonderful. Thank
And
you.
and the problem we had a meeting, Zoom meeting with the local Rotary Club in Ukraine. We talked to them, through translate, etc. They appreciated it. They said it would perhaps be better to send them money from time to time rather than actual goods, because they on the ground they would know exactly what they need. One time they may not need ambulances, they might need I don't know, salt, they might need mattresses or whatever it needs on the ground. And so we are gearing up to see the next aid we send. We'll check with them if they want concrete things to send, or bags of wheat or whatever they want, or just send money.
I think
But at least Rotary has done. Yeah, we have sent something.
Yeah,
and we talk to them
include us into what we can do as a board to help you do what you do. Because you wear many hats, and your hats are sideways sometimes, backwards sometimes. So just allow us to be able to help you, and maybe we can get other people involved.
Yeah.
Francis,
Yana Marcia has her hand up.
Okay, I think Joan had her hand up first.
Oh, sorry.
No.
No? Okay, go ahead, Madam President.
I just wanted to tell an anecdote from the UN. So I used to work in Bangkok, Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. And one of my friends was a Ukrainian named Sasha Makarenko. And I saw him a couple of years ago. This is just going back to what Tony presented in the very beginning about the chaos that was going on in the Ukraine in 1991. My colleague Sasha said to me, "Oh, he was appointed. He was a UN guy, right? He was appointed foreign minister of Ukraine. So he was sent back to Ukraine, and he told me later that he was writing the foreign policy of Ukraine on a blank piece of white paper. So that is how unprepared they were. He was starting from scratch.
From scratch. Wow.
Yeah. I just remember that vividly,
Yeah. It's just.
But as a people, the Ukrainians are wonderful people. I don't know whether you've met. They're very, very pleasant people.
Yeah.
Met them in the UN and when I was in the Middle East, etc.
A lot of them in Yonkers, right, Tony?
Yeah.
Yes. So very, very large population here.
Ukrainian festival.
Yeah. Very pleasant people.
Anything specific they're asking for, Tony, over there in Yonkers that can be?
I think that the church has various activities going on, and they're always welcoming, donations and such that will go over. And and I was mentioning also in our breakout room that their AFIA, I think a lot of you are familiar with that organization, is also sending over medical supplies. So if you want to donate your time, I go there often as a volunteer to help out, and so they'll sort and send supplies, these medical supplies, to the war front. So, yeah.
Tony, can you put that organization in the chat, please?
Sure.
I can't move my camera much.
Okay. Yeah, and Tony, as I asked the ambassador, involve us. If we can, we will.
Yes.
To support what you do, because you're right there in the community. So they know who you are. So you know who you guys are. So if we can be involved, please allow us to be involved.
Yeah, I know. It's a good feeling to be able to give something.
Absolutely. Every little bit helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So can I say a few things?
You're not breaking anything, are you?
No, we have to. I'm typing in the chat and I'm talking. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. I think this was an incredibly important conversation. It really was engagement of the members. That was our goal for tonight. My only regret is that more people are not here, but for those of us who were here, I learned
So did I.
tremendous amount and was really stimulated by the discussion. So I hope we can do this again. I do believe, and I just want some reactions. I think the idea of conflict, worldwide conflict, is a really good topic for another member engagement forum, because, you know, when Ambassador Kalo mentioned that, it was like, yeah, wow, you know, let's talk more about what's going on in other parts of the world and that haven't captured, for some reason, our attention as much. So you know, if people think that's a good idea, you can shake your head or raise your hand. I think it would be a really good next meeting. The other thing is I'm going to write this up for the newsletter, the next chapter newsletter. I'm going to just write a very short article. And if anybody, I put my email in the chat. If anybody wants to contribute a paragraph to that article, if you have something that you think is really, or just send me a couple of sentences or ideas that the things that are important to put in the article. What I would like to do is capture a little bit of our discussion, but also capture the fact that this was a wonderful way of having this conversation to kind of motivate people to come to the next one, which I hope we'll have. I'm motivated after this to have another one. I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll never do this again, but really, I think this conversation was motivating. So anything that you think should go in that article, send me an email and get one person. And President Brusa, Madam President, reminded us at our board meeting last night that we are in a membership drive. We want to get the prize, although I haven't been doing such a good job. I don't think we will. Yana got it for us, I think last year or the year before.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
So what the sort of thrust of this drive is 1 + 1 +, get one friend, one relative, one person to join. When you join, make sure you pick the Westchester chapter. You can join at unausa.org/join, I think is I'll put that in too.
I think that's right.
Very good.
You didn't get the flyer, Joan?
No,
How did that happen? It went out in constant
I
contact.
heard about it from Colleen today.
Oh, no. Oh, because the flyers, I had Richa and some of our other volunteers in the membership committee, Harshita and Harshal, sent it out. And then when Raina came back from her many worldly travels, she sent it out to contacts. So we have you on the membership list. I don't know how that happened, because I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I loved
Yeah,
it.
you know, it's really good seeing you, John.
It's very
I'd like
good.
to say ditto to what Dr. Lichman said. You know, thank you all for, you know, sharing some of your valuable time with us tonight. You see how important it is and how valuable the members are. We don't want you to only be members. We want you to be active members with us, because you can bring a lot to the table to help us into doing what we do for worldly causes as well as local causes. And if you have any suggestions to make this better, please let us know, okay? But again, thank you, especially Dr. Tony and Ambassador Okello for always being there for us. You know, see what happens when you're so good, you just keep on being called up. But we really appreciate you. I'm gonna turn it back over to our I don't know what to call her, our everything, Dr. Lichman. Anything else?
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody. I want to thank Tony Kalamalu, if I'm saying that right, probably not. Francis Okelo, I want to thank you, Yana Edwards. I want to thank Marsha Brewster, and I want to thank everybody Richa. I want to thank everybody who is here. I think I was a little nervous about this, I have to say. I had a dream last night, I'll tell you all, that I came to 8:30. I came to the meeting at 8:30.
And she said, guess who yelled at me? The general, right? She never answered back.
I just mentioned that to Yana, but anyway, I think that was really.
Oh, Ronnie, that's probably when I got a text from you at 4 a.m.
She has been nervous. the whole year.
That's nice. That's
No
nice.
memory.
Thank you. Fantastic job, Ronnie.
It,
Fantastic.
it was a very interesting conversation, I must
Yes.
say. Thank you.
Very good. Very
Thank you,
good.
everyone.
Yeah,
Good
thanks
night.
everyone. Good night.
Night.
Yeah,
Good
thank
night.
you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, young
Good
people.
night.
Thank you.
Bye bye.